So our employee has failed the first line saliva test, and we now need to send a sample off to the laboratory so that they can run what's called a chain of custody test. So this is a chain of custody test kit, so I'm just going to open the bag and talk you through the components. So we have, first of all, a postage paid envelope, which is going to be put into the post. We have a transit bag, and this is in two parts, and I'll explain that as we go through. We have two transport pots, and we have a chain of custody test consent form, and we have two collection devices. So I'm going to run through those in a few moments, but first of all I want to just talk our way through the chain of custody consent form. So this is in four parts, and I'll explain where each part goes at the end. So at the top we have customer code, customer telephone number, customer postcode, and the customer name. Now you'll find that when you get these kits that those are already filled in. Customer name is our name, that's the resellers of the drug kits. The only thing you need to worry about on or to fill in on the top part of the form is site location, so that will be your company name and where you're located. Underneath that, reason for tests, and that could be for one of a number of reasons, so pre-employment, post-incident, accident, near-miss, random, follow-up, for cause, scheduled, or for any other reason. And if there's no reason why you've done the test, you simply put that in other reason. Then we have collector's name, donor's name, date of birth, their gender, collection time, collection date, sentinel number. If you work on the railways, you may need that, and also national insurance number. If you know the employee's national insurance number, it's beneficial if you put that in there. Underneath that, we have donor declaration for medication. If you've already done an initial test, you would have asked them about medication, so you can simply transfer that medication onto this form. Underneath that, there are two boxes. So the first one says I am not taken and have not taken medication in the last 14 days. And if that's the case, they simply tick the box there. Or I am taking medication, but I don't want to declare it. And if that's the case, they put a little tick in the box there. So they then have to sign the medical declaration. Underneath that, if it's a urine test, you would put the little tick in the box for urine temperature, but we're doing oral fluid or saliva test here, so we don't need to worry about that. Where it says please write test required here, this is what you want the laboratory to test for. So your employee could have failed for, say, cannabis and cocaine, and if that's the case, you would simply write those two drugs there. You can either use the full drug name, or you can use the internationally recognised drug code, which you find on the drug kits. And then you just tick the box to say that it's oral fluid. Underneath that, they then have to read and sign and date the donor consent to test. And as a collecting officer, you have to sign and date that there. There are also two tamper-proof evidence seals on here, one marked A and one marked B. And they have to initial and date both of those tamper-proof evidence seals. And that will become clearer as we go through running the test. So that's the donor consent form, so we can put that to one side for a minute, and now we can look at the kit itself. So I generally tend to get the employee to do this one at a time. So I open one pack up. So what we should have is a little vial with some suspension fluid in. The date and lot number of the kit clearly stamped on the side of the vial. Please don't use testing kits that are out of date, because if the laboratory receive an out of date kit, they won't be able to run the test. So we just put that to one side for a second. We take out the collection device. And if I show you the collection device, it's just a little pad on the end of a stick. It's blue one side, white the other, with the pad extruding from the end. There's a little hole there, which is at the moment, if you look inside that little hole there, it's white. So I'm going to put this into my mouth. Generally within 2 to 3 minutes, we'll see a blue colour appear in the window, and that tells us that there's enough saliva on there, and we can now put this into the vial. So I'm going to put this in my mouth, and then I'm going to come back to you in a few moments once it's turned blue.